Relax, sit back as we fill your mind with spooky true crime stories of the deranged, unhinged, and absolute pure evil murders that will blow your mind. Some places we will visit to show you around and educate you on the history. Other times we will bring you to the paranormal because the dead never lie silent for too long.
Be the last time anybody sees us alive. I don't know where she has us, but we're gonna get fucking killed.
Hello? Gina, there is a beehive over there. Do you see that in the hole?
Buckle up, Buttercup.
Welcome to 50 States of Madness.
Welcome to 50 States of Madness.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back this week.
Welcome to another week of madness.
Yes, and there are some crazy-ass madness out there. When you presented this story, I flipped the fuck out because this guy is, like, insane.
He is. I had seen him all over YouTube. And I didn't even know, I had no idea what the story was. I had no clue. All I knew is I kept seeing, like, as I scrolled through TikTok, thumbnails of this guy. And if for those of you who don't know who Wade Wilson is, he's not the Deadpool guy, but he is known as the Deadpool Killer, I believe is how they have.
Because he shares the same name as the Deadpool.
But this
he's
guy
fucking
is,
scary looking.
But beyond.
Yeah. But it's funny. Before he went to prison, good looking guy.
Oh, for sure.
Evil, monster, crazy ass dude, but good looking.
Mm-hmm. Very good looking guy. But yeah, he, well, you'll see, we'll put pictures up of him.
Oh, I'm sure you see it in the thumbnail.
Yeah, he's,
well, if you're watching us on YouTube.
and this is coming from somebody who is heavily tattooed. More of my body is tattooed than not.
Yeah.
And this guy scares me. So
there's
says a lot.
I know everybody has opinions about tattoos, and for the most part, we're pretty open about what anybody decides to do with their body when it comes to tattooing. But when you start making your face look distorted and evil, there's just like, I think it's just a universal concession that it's not looking good. Yeah,
I have my limits.
Like, I don't even mind tattoos on the head. Like, not even face tattoos are fine. Like, I mean, even Kat Von D, she had some nice little little face tattoos and stuff. But the way he did
got
it
going on is,
yeah,
it's a bit much for sure.
Thank you. He's not doing himself any favors.
And then add on top of that, you know, everything that this guy has done.
And if anything, I mean, he's not the worst serial killer that we've come across.
No.
And we can't even label him a serial killer. He went on a killing spree, but he's not a serial killer.
What constitutes a killing spree?
Like, I would just think like boom, 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 like a school shooter.
But how many though?
I would just think more than one. Just if you have more than one under your belt.
Like back to back, you think? That's like a killing spree?
I would think something like if you went out in a day and you went and shot people, like a school shooting, or you went to a mall and you walked in and you started shooting. You know, I would say that would be like
truth be told, if this guy wasn't caught,
he would have done more.
It wouldn't have stopped.
No, but I don't think he's serial. I think he didn't hide it to me, a serial killer is somebody who's trying to get away with it, and wants to do multiple over a super long period of time,
right?
But with him, it was just kind of like he was just looking for victim after victim after victim.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
because,
that's true.
You know, his girlfriend got lucky.
Mm-hmm. No,
you know,
for sure.
Yeah, it's just, or he would have had 3 under his belt. But yeah, he's definitely not the worst, but he's definitely the most memorable character.
For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, I apologize, but I have like a piece of hair that is...
She's messing with her hair bun.
Mighty. It's just like, God, it's on. I got a mind of its own. But anyway... Yeah. So today we're going to talk about Wade Wilson. So Wade met Kristine Melton at a local bar called Buddha on October 6th. They partied together, and the following morning, while she was sleeping, he strangled her to death and stole her car. He said that he tried to roll her up in something and put her in the trunk of her car, but rigor mortis had already started to set in, and he couldn't lift her.
Okay, I want to say something about that because it brought up, and if you watched last week's episode when we're talking about Scott Peterson and shooting the shit with Scott Peterson. And we kind of talk about things that, you know, just in other cases too, the Chris Watts case where, you know, his wife was pregnant and she was a little bit more meatier, you know, than Lacey Peterson, Scott Watts, Chris Watts' wife.
Scott Watts.
I'm just mixing them, blending them all together. But it's funny how this guy, he's very much in shape. He's young.
6'6" tall.
And buff. He looks like
He's a monster.
And for him not to be able to pick up this girl, and we talk about like Chris Watts, there's no way in hell that he lifted his wife by himself into his truck. Like when you hear this guy outright admitting he could not put this body in a trunk, like you're looking at these other people who are like, oh yeah, he did it himself. How is that even possible? So then I go back and I thought about that, like Lacey Peterson.
Yeah.
Like she was 8 months pregnant.
Yep.
How would he have lifted her by himself into a boat?
Yep.
Like lift her up into the tow, because you know the boats sit up on those the racks for the tow, and you got to lift them up in there with nobody seeing, nobody knowing anything. It's just crazy to me, like the weight. And
dead weight is not like, you can be 140, 150 pounds.
Yeah.
But dead weight, 140 or 150 pounds, is it's a whole other ball game.
And one person to do it, and I'm sorry, but I mean, not to come down on Scott Peterson, but he was a dad bod.
Of course.
Like, he was, 8 months pregnant along with his wife. You know how our husbands get when we get 8 months pregnant, they're eating the same thing we're eating. So it wasn't like he was like this big buff guy going to the gym all the time. You know, the dude's playing golf and going fishing. I'm not saying he didn't do it, but I'm just saying, how did he do it and with what help? You know, it kind of makes you put those things into question, you know?
For sure.
So that's...
And it took me a while. And mind you, I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe this girl was maybe 5'2" or 5'3".
Yeah, and I think I heard something like she was like 120 pounds or something, 130 pounds. Like she was a tiny thing. So...
And he's 6'6".
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's...
and he couldn't lift her. Like, okay, so it gets me questioning all those others. Like, how did Chris Watts do it on his own, Yeah. Because he didn't, guys. But anyways, okay. Sorry, but go on. He couldn't put her in the trunk.
Yeah, so he couldn't lift her. So he left her there at her house and took her car. As he was driving, he spotted Diane Ruiz walking to work. He pulled over and asked her for directions to a school and somehow was able to convince her to get in the car with him. He then strangled Diane. After realizing that she was not dead, he pushed her out of the car and ran her over multiple times. He then called his biological father, Stephen Testaseca, and confessed to the murders, saying that he ran Diane over until she looked like spaghetti. When questioned at the trial, his father said that he had no remorse at all for what he had done. And for this guy to, if you look at, like footage from the trial and stuff like that, he's just sitting there like you and I are sitting here like
why he's bored, wasting my time.
Yeah, no emotion, no nothing. Clearly, I mean, he's suffering from a lot of some things. I don't know what, but a lot.
Crazy.
So the jury found him guilty on all charges and recommended the death penalty. Wilson's sentencing has been pushed back for several times and is now set for August 27th. So as of today, our day of recording is August 26th. So August 27th, he will be sentenced tomorrow. However, we don't know if that will be pushed back again.
We record on Mondays usually, and so when we don't put it up till either Thursday or Friday. So by then maybe we'll have an answer and I'll stick it in here.
Yeah. Yeah. If we know, what his sentencing will be, but I believe it was supposed to be for tomorrow afternoon.
Okay.
So we'll
keep
see.
an eye out.
Yeah.
Breaking news, a judge just sentenced Wade Wilson to the death penalty, and now the state attorney is talking about the case. Let's listen in live.
Kristine Melton and Diane Ruiz. They were two beautiful and wonderful women with their whole lives ahead of them. and they were cherished and loved by family, friends, and their community. The defendant in this case will now sit on Florida's death row as he awaits the death penalty. He will pay the ultimate price, the highest penalty we carry in Florida, because of the heinous, atrocious, and cruel things he did to these two victims.
Wilson's team is asking for them to perform brain scans on him, claiming that there is some sort of traumatic brain injury. But a forensic psychologist tried to meet with Wilson to get a better look at what he was dealing with. However, Wilson was not very cooperative, and the psychologist wasn't able to make a diagnosis, but did claim that whatever was going on was significant.
Yeah, I mean,
so he said, so this forensic psychologist said that he had tried to meet with him multiple times, and what he meant by not being cooperative was basically that when he would ask him, like, do you suffer from this? Do you suffer from that? He would say yes to everything. Yes, I suffer from this. To what level? The 10th degree. Like, everything was yes, and everything was the worst. And the psychologist said that he's basically treated people with horrible illnesses, and not everybody suffers from every single thing.
Yeah.
And so he said, I can't really believe everything that he's saying. I think he's just basically not cooperating with me. So now they want to do these brain scans, and which I think is good, because I think that will definitely see what's going on upstairs, because, you know, it seems to be quite a bit.
Yes, definitely.
So yeah. So hopefully we will get to hear what's happening.
And what turn, like, maybe they can look in and see what turns somebody, like, get somebody to do this type of thing.
Well, and I feel like
any
a lot of
remorse.
times, a lot of this stuff isn't even able to be treated with medicine or therapy, or like, this is just him.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times that's just what it is. Like, this is just going to be him, and he's a dangerous person, and he just needs to be locked away.
Yeah. No, for sure.
So Wilson also had a girlfriend named Melissa Montanez, who was also with him at a bar prior to meeting Kristine. She testified that Wilson had repeatedly asked her to leave with him to go to a man's house that he had met that night named Jason Shepard. Melissa told him that she wasn't comfortable going with Wilson, and Wilson took her car without permission. It was then that Wilson met Kristine. And I feel like maybe this was kind of his personality, that you know, this wasn't the first time that they had bickered or whatever the case may be. So Kristine's friend, Stephanie Johnson, said, and she was there that night at the bar, said that Wilson introduced himself as Junior.
Yeah, he didn't even introduce himself as Wade.
No. Back then, Wilson had no tattoos on his face. She described him as friendly and charming and did not see any red flags. And I think that is how he got away with a lot of things, is by his looks. He was very charming. He was very handsome. And I think that is how he kind of got these women to, I'm sure that's how he got Diane Ruiz to get in his car. And that's how he got a lot of these people to do what he wanted them to do.
I'm just surprised, like, what made him snap? Like, if he's had, I don't know if he's had a record of this before. I mean, but how this night is the night that he just decided, you know.
Yeah, we're going to end it all for everybody.
Yeah. You know, he gets in a fight with his girlfriend. He's pissed off at her. She has to leave the bar, not in her own car, because he takes the keys away from her.
Yep.
So she has to find a way to get home on her own. Mm-hmm. Thank God she did.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but...
And who knows what would have happened if she would have went to this guy's, Jason Shepard's house.
And stayed with them.
There's no saying. So Wilson and Kristine were allegedly attracted to each other. Stephanie and Jason both testified the two were intimate when they reached Jason's home a few minutes away. When the three arrived at Tudor Drive, Stephanie said, "I felt a sense of relief that we got home safely." She had to take her child to school and go to work, so she left Wilson and Kristine together. "She hugged me, kissed me, and she said she'd see me tomorrow," Stephanie said in her testimony. So obviously if she's leaving, you know, a good friend of hers, she's not thinking like, oh, like you wouldn't leave your friend there if you thought something like this was going to happen.
She didn't think anything was going to happen. She said she left him because they had gone to Jason's house.
Yeah.
And then the funny thing is that when they were leaving Jason's house, because he had taken his girlfriend Melissa's car, they go to jump into this car and he couldn't drive it because it was stick shift. So he doesn't know how to drive it. He can't get it into drive. And this doesn't raise any flags for these girls to say, like, wait a second. He came in this car.
Where did you get this?
Thank you. Because Jason drove the car from the club to Jason's house.
Yep.
So then when Wilson tried to drive it, he couldn't drive it. So they had to get out of the car. So the girls said, never mind. We'll take an Uber home.
Yeah.
And Jason just leaves a car there that's his, not Jason, Wilson just leaves a car there that's supposedly his.
Yeah.
And jumps in the Uber with these two girls. So nothing raised a red flag though on that part?
I'm sure that
I don't want to blame them. Not that I'm blaming them. But
I
like,
think that
maybe they were drinking.
They were drinking,
okay.
Of course. And so I think, you know, when you're in the moment, you're just like, whatever. We're partying. We're having a good time.
Thinking about
like,
it.
No, you're not really. And now, of course, you're going to dissect everything.
Yeah, you look back and you're like,
yeah. At the time, she said she had no concerns for her friend's safety. It was shortly after Stephanie left Kristine's home that police believe Wilson strangled her to death. Her body wouldn't be discovered until the evening. Wilson's girlfriend, Melissa Montanez, reported getting calls from Wilson on her work phone before 8 a.m. She said she finally answered just before 9 a.m. Wilson wanted to know where she was and if he could come get her. Melissa said she was furious about him taking her car the night before and simply wanted to get it back. She said this made Wilson angry. It escalated into name-calling, aggression, and intimidation, she said. Melissa ended up meeting Wilson at her business in downtown Fort Myers. Melissa and the friend she stayed overnight with reported Wilson showing up in a car that they weren't familiar with. Police later identified the car as Kristine's black Nissan Versa.
So here's Melissa thinking that Wilson's bringing back her car, but he left it at Jason's house.
Yeah.
She has no idea where her car is.
And now she's in this car. Now she's in Kristine's car.
Now he's in, now he's all like,
now he's like, wait.
Now he's like, comes in a different car. Yeah.
So Melissa said Wilson was trying to pull her into the vehicle he was driving. His grip was so strong that it nearly ripped the dress she was wearing off her body. She said Wilson opened the car door and tackled her. He forgot to put the car in park, so it ended up bumping into another vehicle. Melissa said Wilson punched her, slapped her, and choked her. There's nobody behind the eyes anymore. There's no reasoning with him, Melissa testified. So that right there, when somebody says there's nobody behind the eyes anymore, that's a very scary thing.
Place to be when
no
you look
emotion,
at somebody.
no nothing. Yeah, that's not a good place to be in. So she explained that she was trying to reason with Wilson, trying to buy time for police to arrive. Witnesses report Melissa was dragged up the stairs to her business and held against the wall by her throat. I didn't know if I was going to be thrown over or if they were going to have to resuscitate me inside, Melissa said. I knew I was going to die that day. It was at that point Wilson hit Melissa straight on. She said she remembered blood flying everywhere. She said while Wilson was stunned by the blood, she ducked under his arm and ran away. Wilson got back in the black Nissan and drove off. Just after 3 p.m. on October 7th, Fort Myers police officer Timothy McCormick said he had been searching for Wilson in relation to the battery of Melissa. Body cam footage showed Wilson parked at Joe's Crab Shack without a t-shirt on. He was in the black Nissan. McCormick said Wilson seemed nervous and defensive. He was uncooperative. Wilson told the officer he was waiting on his girlfriend. When McCormick tried to detain the then 25-year-old, Wilson is seen on video rolling up the car window and skirting around the police patrol vehicle. Because the investigation was for a misdemeanor battery charge, McCormick could not chase Wilson. At the time, police weren't aware of the murders. So could you imagine looking back at this and being like, I had this dude.
He was
right
there.
here in front of me, and he just took off, and I couldn't do a damn thing.
I think if they would have known about the murders, they could have done more to stop them.
100%.
At that point,
well, if they were aware of the murders, of course, but just
Yeah.
because, so it says a battery charge alone does not warrant a chase that could potentially harm people and property.
Well, that makes sense.
It does. It makes sense. And he was right there.
I know.
But we'll quickly learn that he wasn't hard to catch. So
No.
police believe this is when Wilson went back to Cape Coral. In the afternoon, Stephanie Johnson said she got a call from the Cape Coral Police Department asking if she knew where Kristine was or why her car was found in Fort Myers. It was at that point she said she started worrying about what happened to her best friend and after she left her home. In fear for Kristine's well-being, Cape Coral police forced their way into her home that evening. Officer Charles Caruso said they were barely inside for 45 seconds before they saw a large bundle of bedding and clothing in a hallway near the bedroom. After clearing the home to make sure no one else was inside, they separated the sheets enough to see Kristine's leg tattoo. The officers reported she was cold to the touch, so their team backed out of the house and taped it off as a crime scene. In another part of town, CCPD reported Wilson broke into a home by removing the screen and glass from a window. The homeowners left for Ohio that morning. Police said Wilson helped himself to many White Claw seltzers, food, and clothing. That, I feel, is a very common thing. The Night Stalker did that.
Helped himself to people's homes.
And there's actually a guy, I'm not going to say his name. There's a guy that I went to high school with that murdered an elderly lady. It's probably been 15 or 20 years now. But that's what he did. He broke into her home and he went through and sat down at the table and had a beer with this woman and then murdered her.
I'm just wondering why we haven't done a story on the person you went to high school with.
I've thought about it a few times, but he's still in prison.
Oh. Why, you're waiting till he gets out so we can interview him or what?
No, I don't know, because that one's like kind of really close to home. I don't know if I want to.
Well, I went
because he was like actually like a friend of my ex-husband's and played football with him and like so.
Okay,
yeah,
so that's a little. Oh, I went to junior high with a guy who's in jail right now for being a pimp, and I'm going to show you a picture of him. And you would have never known this guy was going to be a pimp. Like, it's the last thing you would have thought this guy was going to be.
Look, you never know, okay?
Maybe hiring the hookers, but definitely not the pimp. You know?
Several hours later, with the help of Wilson's father, police found Wilson at this home and arrested him. On October 8th, police searched ponds and the wooded areas near Hector Cafarita Jr. Elementary School, where Diane was last seen walking to work. The Lee County Sheriff's Office used a helicopter to survey the area. Diane's purse had been turned into the school by a man who came in to pay for his kids' after-school care. Police linked the disappearance of Diane to the death of Kristine on October 9th. Detectives suspected foul play in regards to Diane. Her fiancé, Scott Hannon, said that detectives found a person of interest had used her phone. However, police would not identify who was in custody. On October 10th, Cape Coral Police Sergeant Justin DeRosso testified he and his partner were involved in the search for Diane. His partner wanted to check out an empty lot in North Cape Coral. They noticed a single vulture circling an area to the east, DeRosso testified. Vultures usually circle carcasses, dead bodies, and dead animals. When they got closer, they found Diane's decomposing body. They said that he ran her over 20 or 30 times.
Yeah, I'm like, where is this done that nobody saw it? It was 8 a.m. in the morning.
I don't know.
Like, or maybe I
thought about that same thing.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Then to pull over and strangle her. Like, you can see that like something's going on inside of the car, and then she's thrown out of the car and then run over.
I am so shocked nobody saw anything.
It had to take time. Like, that's not a quick death. On November 19th, 2019, State Attorney Amira Fox announced premeditated murder charges against Wilson for the deaths of these two women. These two women were preyed upon by the defendant, and their murders impacted the families and shook our community. Almost a year after his arrest, Wilson and his cellmate Joseph Katz tried to pull a get-out-of-jail-free card. Lee County Sheriff Carmine Marcino said the men planned to use a window as their escape route. They started to remove some of the weather stripping, and they started to remove some of the bolts. There is no way to get through that window physically, even if it was broken. In August 2021, Wilson requested a transfer to the Charlotte County Jail. Charlotte County Sheriff did not want him there, and prosecutors argued Wilson was a flight risk. Wilson said he wanted to move to have easier access to his case. The judge ultimately denied his request. This man should not be given anything that he wants at this point.
No, there shouldn't be anything given to him.
No, I'm sorry. But if you want to move, there's a reason, and I don't believe that that was the reason.
Yeah.
Days before jury selection was set to begin, Wilson's attorneys requested he be allowed to wear makeup. Their motion argued Wilson has numerous and varied tattoos on his face, including stitches, swastikas, and other tattoos that might be objectionable to members of the potential jury pool. He would like to appear presentable to the jury, deciding his guilt or innocence, or whether he lives or dies.
Oh, he thought about this after the fact that he's got these tattoos put on him. Like, don't you think you'd want to go through the trial first before you start fucking up your face like that?
Yeah,
like,
so the stitches are kind of like a continuation of his mouth, like a smile. He has a swastika on, I believe, his right cheek, like a very small one on his upper right cheek. And he has a bunch of writing on his face. I'm not quite sure what it spells, what it means. I don't know. But, I mean, I guess if you're getting tattoos in jail, it doesn't matter. But I know these days that it's very... Good luck trying to find a tattoo artist that will tattoo a swastika on you.
It's like,
or honestly, the stuff on the mouth, like yeah, I don't know.
I feel like he got held down in jail and they did it to him,
right? Like the other story that we did.
It was a choice. Yeah.
He also requested a haircut. The judge allowed both. However, it did not appear throughout jury selection and the trial that Wilson ever put makeup on. He didn't. He went through his whole trial,
with it on.
Just how he looks.
Yeah.
His facial tattoos were clearly visible throughout his trial.
Yeah. You definitely can see those suckers.
Yeah. There's not even like, it wasn't even like he put like bad makeup on and you could see them kind of coming through. No, there was nothing on that man's face.
Yeah. Wilson was charged with the following: first-degree murder of Kristine Melton, grand theft motor vehicle, battery, first-degree murder of Diane Ruiz, burglary of a dwelling, first-degree petite theft, which means, because we had to look it up, that the theft is greater than $100 but less than $750. So it's a small little theft. So for the state, attorneys Andreas Gardner and Sarah Miller are prosecuting the case. Kevin Shirley and Lee Hollander are defending Wilson. Judge Nicholas Thompson is presiding over the case. It took the court 4 full days to select their jury. A panel of 16 people was needed to sit through the lengthy trial. Attorneys began by polling potential jurors one by one to answer questions. They wanted to know if people had prior knowledge of the case, if they had watched the news or read anything about the investigation, or if they had any potential hardships, surgeries, vacations, anything that would prevent them from sitting on this jury. Then came one of the hardest questions for most jurors. What were their opinions on the death penalty? If they felt strongly one way or the other, they were usually dismissed. The attorneys seemed to be looking for people who were in the middle of the road, who can listen to the facts and decide based on the individual case. Defense attorney Kevin Shirley said, the death penalty is reserved for homicides that are exceptional. Not everyone who participates in homicides qualify for the death penalty. Anyone who made it through the first round of questioning was asked to return later in the week. Thursday, June 6, all who made it to the second round gathered for final questioning. From there, attorneys worked together to pick their 16-person jury. It is important to note 2 jurors were excused on the first day of the trial. They privately approached the judge and shared circumstances that prevented them from staying for the remainder of the trial. So Wade Wilson's biological father, Stephen Testaseca, said that he was 14 to 15 years old when he found out he was going to be a father. He did appear very young if you watch the videos of the father testifying. Yeah. And it's crazy to know that your son's calling you. I would not know what to do in that case if my son is calling me, telling me, just nonchalantly, I just killed a girl, I ran over another, and I beat the shit out of my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Wilson's biological mother allowed a family from her church to adopt the boy after birth. At 18, Wilson began reaching out. Stephen said his son often asked for money and help. He testified Wilson called him on the night of the murders numerous times. He needed help, Stephen recalled. He had done something he couldn't take back. Saying his son was a good storyteller, Stephen told the court he didn't believe Wilson at first. He said, "I'm a killer." Following the recount of their conversation, the state started asking about Wilson's demeanor during the phone call. He was excited, Stephen said. I felt like he was wanting me to feel how he felt about it. They did say like he had this certain like excitement when he was telling about it. Like he like was really proud of what he did.
Like that rush, that adrenaline rush.
Like
that he, a lot of people. And I feel like obviously that's why a lot of people do this stuff. Like serial killers, it's that adrenaline rush.
No remorse or anything.
None.
During the phone call with his father, Wilson was hiding from police in a Cape Coral home. He asked his dad for help for an Uber to get out of town. Stephen got Wilson's location, but rather than sending help, he sent the U.S. Marshals Service. I initially wanted to help him, Stephen said. Then the feeling changed. I thought, what if that was my mom or my daughter, sister or wife? I wouldn't want somebody to do that. He was concerned if he didn't turn his son in, Wilson would kill again. And he would.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind this guy would have taken out anybody that came in his way.
It was a rush for him.
Yep.
When the marshals arrived, Stephen encouraged Wilson to exit the home peacefully. I didn't want him to do anything stupid and get killed, he remembered. I told him to put his hands up and go outside. Wilson elected to maintain his right not to testify. This case was about killing for the sake of killing, Andreas Gardner said, as the state prepared jurors for deliberations. He presented the first half of the state's closing arguments. It's important to note that during his argument, Gardner made several references to a jail interview Wilson gave detectives days after his arrest. Jurors heard the recorded audio of the conversation. However, it was nearly impossible to understand in the courtroom. Jurors received a copy of the transcript to aid their comprehension. He told detectives, "I've done it once, I'll do it again," Gardner said. Blunt force trauma for compliance, strangulation for silence.
That's a sick man. That's a sick man.
Wow.
And I'm glad that they wrote that down for the jurors to read, since it was kind of inaudible for them to hear.
Yes.
Because that right there kind of seals the deal for me.
It tells you the type of guy he is, like where his mind was.
Yep.
The prosecutor said in one day Wilson went after these 3 women, but only one survived. She did because there were too many people around to kill her. He said he'd kill Melissa too if given the chance, Gardner quoted. He then went charge by charge, explaining what elements the jury needed to find in order to convict Wilson. For the first-degree murder charges, it says killing with premeditation. It's killing after consciously deciding to do so. Strangulation is the epitome of life slipping through someone's hands, Gardner said. Premeditation starts by placing hands on the throat of another. Application of pressure, squeezing the throat, not releasing until there is not one final breath that remains in the person. Both people know that one person is going to die. Gardner went on to explain the grand theft elements in relation to Wilson using Kristine's black Nissan Versa. He reminded them of surveillance videos showing the defendant inside the vehicle on numerous occasions. You heard the testimony of Melissa Montanez, Gardner said, as he prepared to explain the battery charge. There is no way she consented to that. He brought up a photo of Melissa holding a bloody rag to her face. Fortunately for Melissa, she survived, but if given the chance, she would have been dead. At least that's what he told us. The 4th charge is the first-degree murder of Diane Ruiz. Gardner calls her a fighter. In that recorded interview with detectives, he told you in his statement she was scared. She wanted to be dropped off. He knew he wasn't going to drop her off. He was going to kill her. He already had it in his head. He'd killed before. He did it again. Wilson claims she was still breathing when he left her, despite his running over her many times. He left Diane on an empty lot under a tree, hoping no one would even find her. Lastly, Gardner went over the burglary and theft charges. Wilson broke into a Cape Coral home through a window. He helped himself to food, clothes, and drinks. This case was never about Wade Wilson. It's about what Wade Wilson did to Kristine Melton and Diane Ruiz. Make no mistake, despite the bragging and boasting, the excitement he wants to feel, this case was nothing more than a graphic, vulgar display of power.
How did this happen?
I don't know, dude.
How did you do this? How? Like, tell me. I want answers.
You want answers? Well, remember when I went to that dude's house or whatever?
Wait, no. Okay, listen. You went to somebody's house? Okay, listen.
Yeah.
My helper was driving away. Was that girl in the car?
They were both in the car.
Something. Who? 2 girls?
Yeah.
You had two girls in my car and driving away. And who was driving?
The dude, remember the dude that we were in the bar with? That was sitting there.
It was, my backseat was full of stuff, you know?
What is it?
How did you put 4 people in the car?
Well, listen.
4 people in the car?
Yeah. Baby, listen to what I'm saying. Remember the dude that was sitting at the table that bought us the shots? Remember?
Yes.
Okay. I went to his house.
Yes, with the 2 girls.
Yes.
What happened? Please say something. You can talk in code or whatever. Just say something.
Wait, what? What, baby?
You can talk in code or whatever you have to. Just please.
No, baby, they already know. I don't have to talk in code.
Well, then tell me what happened then. I
fucking killed the bitch.
Why, Wade? Why?
Because we went to this dude's house, Mila, and remember when he kept showing us the pictures? Oh, I got this, or whatever. Yes. So I went to his house and I did a lot of it. Like he was giving me a lot, and I was doing a lot of.
The girl?
Huh?
Why did you kill that girl?
I shouldn't have. I'm wrong.
Tell me what happened. Did you have sex with her? You went and killed her? What?
No, I didn't have sex with her. I killed her though.
Why? Why, Wade?
Because I was fucking freaking out on those drugs. Whatever he gave me must have been like fucking like bath salts or something else. It wasn't cocaine.
What happened to where you grab a knife and stab her? What happened?
I didn't stab her. Who said I stabbed her?
People keep saying you stabbed the girl. How'd you kill her?
No. I
choked her out.
I choked her out until she died. Until she was dead.
You knew that you were going to do that to me one day.
Mila, I was never going to do that to you, babe. Mila, I didn't even want to fucking... Mila, when I came back to see you, the only reason I was freaking out like that wasn't because I was trying to scare you. It was because I had to tell you... Mila, I know I did, but I know, Mila. Mila, I'm sorry.
It took the 12 jurors over 2 hours to return their verdict. They found Wilson guilty as charged on all 6 counts. Wilson showed no emotion as the clerk read the verdict form. In the audience, the victims' families could be seen holding hands and crying. Cape Coral Police Chief Anthony Sizemore stood alongside the prosecution and victims' families as the verdict was read. He said he comes to court because cases like these we view in the lives of the victims and their families. They were not doing anything wrong and evil came to them. The chief said, evil comes to you and into your life and can destroy so many lives. This guy was sick. And I have to say that I've been, I kind of went down the rabbit hole with him too and watching videos and stuff. And he has not stopped. He's continuing to do crime while behind bars. Yeah. He tried doing drug trafficking. He's gotten girls to, give him drugs.
I believe he has a girlfriend.
Oh, there's some in jail now. Yeah. Like there's one girl in jail serving time. Another one I think is going to go to jail because he's convincing these women to drop off drugs so he can sell them in prison. Yeah. And they have the drug dogs that walk by and they've been finding these packages that these people leave. And it's just maddening and sickening, that he's still allowed to, and he's still trying to do all this. And then, I'll put the video in here if I find it. But when they read the verdict and said that he was getting the death sentence, I believe it was when they said that, but they were talking about the hand signal he gave.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, he gave some kind of secret he gave a hand sign.
To who?
We don't. That's what they're saying. They're I don't.
She said we don't know.
We're investigating right now. We're on the case. Don't worry about it. But you know what? I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to get my teachers to see. I don't know. I don't worry
yet. Okay?
I'm on
We're
the
working on it. Don't you worry about it.
One of these days, you know what? We're solving cases here. It's all about our true crime.
That's right.
We're not just another podcast. So, okay, yeah, but yeah, no, it's just he's still there's still stories about him out there.
I'm really I'm real curious to see how those brain scans, what it's going to show.
Yeah,
what has happened, and I'm really curious to know, like you said, if he had played football or contact sports or gotten a lot of fights or had any head injuries as a child, like the Night Stalker. He had multiple head injuries when he was a child. Sorry, I keep going back to Night Stalker.
Because they beat him when he was young.
But he had a dresser fall on his head.
Yeah.
He was knocked out by a swing. So he was unconscious knocked unconscious 2 or 3 times before he was even like 5 or 6 years old.
Well, in this one, I didn't know this until I read it right here, but I didn't know that he was adopted.
Yeah.
I didn't know that he wasn't raised by both his parents.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who knows what kind of foster family or adoptive family he had? I mean, they didn't really touch base in any of the videos of what was his upbringing, his childhood. You know, does he have CTE? I don't know. You know, who knows what he witnessed?
Yeah, that's a big thing that they were talking about. So
yeah.
Okay. So we'll see, and in between, you know, now and us releasing this video, which won't be for like another week and a half.
Yeah.
Hopefully we have some updates, and he'll be sentenced. So we'll
for sure.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. Thank you for joining us again.
Yeah.
For
Thank you for
week.
another week, and we will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.